you this question. You know, we can't wake up at all in any given day without reading, without listening, without watching some horrific crime being committed here in our community, Stoney Creek, Hamilton East, throughout Ontario, throughout Canada, because it's happening every day. And lo and behold, most of the time, we're reading about people already on bail. So what has been going on? I've got many reasons for what's going on and many solutions to share with you. I was told I only have 5 to 10 minutes.
10 to 15.
10 to 15 minutes.
You win.
To give you a full, exhaustive explanation of how we run amok in our judicial system, it would take me several hours. So I'll try to condense that as best I can into 10 to 15 minutes. But I want to hear questions from you, because through your questions I can perhaps elaborate on further points. But let me see a show of hands. Who feels less safe today living here in Stoney Creek, Hamilton East? Pretty much everybody in this room. And I have been on a cross-country tour from coast to coast to coast, every province, every territory, doing town halls like this. I ask the very same question, and I see the same response. So what has happened? In the last 10 years, the current Liberal government, I don't want this to turn into a partisan attack. I'm not assuming everybody here voted for Ned. I hope you did.
Yes,
But
we did.
for those who did not, you're still welcome, because what I'm about to share with you and my solutions is not partisan. Because I really don't care what your political ideology is. I don't care if you're left, right, in the middle, or extreme. Everyone in this community, everyone in this country wants to live in a safe community. They want to go to work, they want to send their kids off to school, knowing that they can return to their home, knowing that they can park their vehicle in their driveway, wake up the next morning, see that same car in the driveway, allowing their kids to play in a park nearby, street hockey, on the street, driveway, basketball, backyard, without predators luring at them, kidnapping them, recruiting them for human trafficking. You want to go to bed at night knowing you can sleep soundly in your bed without the sound of breaking glass or the sound of a door being jammed open with a barrel of a gun staring down at your face. That's what we expect in this country. We expect law and order. And for all the police officers who are here and police services right across the country, they are doing their best to keep us safe. But something is going on in our justice system. And our justice system, because of bad, failed, ineffective, Liberal government policies, has made crime pay. Now, I'm not talking about the vast majority of Canadians who go through the criminal justice system. I would say conservatively, we're probably looking at about 85% of every Canadian who finds himself involved in the criminal justice system by making a bad decision, being in the wrong place at the wrong time, running with the wrong crowd, who get charged by these police officers, end up going through our justice system, and they're petrified, and they're terrified, and they're humiliated. And that's what court is supposed to do. It's not supposed to be a friendly place. It's not a place you take your kids, okay, and hang out there and enjoy the proceedings. It's designed to send a message to you that you do not want to return.
It works.
And the vast majority of Canadians who find themselves caught up in the justice system learn from that and do not repeat. What I'm talking about is the small minority of repeat criminals who often commit a lot of violent crimes, who are thanking our current federal government for making crime pay. Ned talked about consequences. Okay? It all started in 2019. Bill C-75 sent a very clear message that being on bail didn't necessarily mean you had to comply with conditions. Now that sounds ludicrous, doesn't it? When people go through the process of bail, they get released with usual conditions. Do not associate, do not attend, curfew, no weapons, a myriad of conditions can be attached. But when they break those conditions and the police officers arrest those individuals on a breach charge, they end up going back to the same justice system, sometimes the very same judge, the very same justice, and our current federal government said to our judges from 2019 onward to this day, you must release that repeat offender at the earliest opportunity on the least restrictive conditions. Regardless of the crime that they've committed, regardless of the carnage that that crime has had on the community or to a victim, regardless of that person's criminal record, which may display a pattern of breaching court orders or a pattern of being convicted of the same offense over and over again. And most importantly, regardless of the number of releases the person may be on. When I was in the trenches doing bail court, I had one guy with 10 active bail orders, and he still got released.
Gross.
At what point do we say enough is enough?
Gross.
This person can't be trusted, right?
Right.
But that's what's happening. In every community, from coast to coast to coast, we have a small number of violent repeat criminals who are creating this fear, this concern that we have, this chaos that we have on our streets. And our justice system is allowing them to continue their trade. Now, ultimately, they either plead guilty or they go to trial, either found not guilty or being found guilty. And then we now have a justice system that does not appropriately sentence. And what I mean by that is there's no deterrence. A lot of the serious offenses that these people are being convicted of do not necessarily send a message to that person or a message to the community that you commit this crime, it doesn't pay. It doesn't send out a denunciatory message. So these people are emboldened by policies, very poor, very ill thought out policies that are not protecting us. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then mention C5. Mandatory minimum penalties have been on the books for decades. In fact, Pierre Elliott Trudeau, our Prime Minister in the 60s and 70s, I think early 80s, right? Yeah. At various points in time, brought in mandatory minimum penalties because it was designed to set a standard across this country that if you commit this offense, your sentence will be no less than this bar. And as Ned indicated, he listed out a number of very serious offenses in the criminal code. The Bill C-5 that he mentioned in 2022 also eliminated all the mandatory minimum penalties for all the drug offenses that we have in this country. So possession for the purposes of trafficking, production, importing, exporting. We all know we've got a opiate crisis in this country, right? We've all heard about fentanyl overdoses and deaths. I know Donald Trump talked about the fentanyl pouring over the borders. Well, he wasn't too far off. There is a lot of fentanyl being produced in this country. Not too long ago in BC, Falkland, BC, the RCMP took down the largest fentanyl operation this country has ever seen. It had all the makings of Mexican and South American cartel involvement. As Dan indicated, obviously it came through our porous borders, all the equipment, all the precursor equipment, all the ingredients. There was enough ingredients in this small rural farmhouse to produce 96 million doses of fentanyl. Enough to kill every Canadian twice over. Now clearly that was not for Canadian consumption. It was going elsewhere. Could have gone to the States, could have gone overseas, I don't know. But these police officers will probably concur with me. We have got a significant issue with transnational organized crime. Okay? A lot of gang activity from South America is pouring into our country. I spoke with the RCMP commissioner 2 weeks ago. He is very concerned and has set up a task force to deal with this because they're infiltrating this country. And they're getting in through our porous borders. They're coming through, not even necessarily going through a road border or a designated crossing. We've got over 5,000 kilometers of undefended territory in this country. They're entering this country at a fast rate. They're going through Roxham Road in Quebec. So these are the issues. And these organized elements are infiltrating themselves with local organized crime, who are recruiting our youth at an alarming rate. You heard the officers talk about the rise in youth crime. It's exploding. I remember when the Youth Criminal Justice Act was first introduced as law in this country in 2002 or 2003. It was about a generation ago. When I was prosecuting 12-year-olds back then, they were spray painting. They were shoplifting. That's what 12-year-olds did. Now they're killing. Now they're planning and deliberating a killing. You've probably read about it was a 14 or a 15-year-old in Toronto who just had an inkling that he wanted to go for a joyride, steal a car. Finds himself in a grocery parking lot, an elderly lady in her 80s, putting her groceries into her back trunk. He asks for the keys, she says no, he stabs her, kills her. Okay? No remorse, no concern for human life. We've got a real problem with youth. And I am pushing my party and my involvement in the Justice Committee to review the lack of effectiveness of the Youth Criminal Justice Act. Because believe it or not, a youth under the age of 18 who's convicted of first-degree murder, guess how much time he receives, he or she?
0.
Anyone want to guess? 7 years.
What?
7 years for taking a human life.
Gross.
And of that 7 years, they serve 4 years in a secured facility and 3 years in an open facility. Because rehabilitation is the overriding driver of our youth legislation. And I get that. Youth generally are evolving in their minds. They have a diminished level of responsibility. But when you have this degree of violent activity with our youth, something is wrong, something needs to change. So I'm going deep into the weeds here. I'm probably past my 15 minutes. This is what happens when you get a lawyer to start talking. They just keep rambling on and on and on.
Thank you.
That's what happens. So why don't I cut it there, okay? And then we'll open up the floor for questions.